Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our panel, Civic Society Organization and Civic Participation as the Foundation of Democratic Trust. It's a pleasure to see you here at the final conference of TRUEDEM. Over the past 3 years, our consortium has explored how institutional trust is formed, maintained, and lost across 12 countries. As it was mentioned before, trust in democratic institutions is not only about how institutions act, but it cannot be built alone by institutions. It depends on how citizens take part in shaping democracy as well. Civic society organizations play a crucial bridging role between institutions and citizens. And I think that they translate democratic values into everyday practice, whether through transparency, education, monitoring, or inclusion. In Poland, for instance, in interviews, CSO leaders just revealed several very important insights. That, for example, trust is fragile and conditional. So people are willing to trust, but they need to think that it will be some change in the future. And if you are saying about the participation, the civic society leaders told us that sometimes participation is only on the paper, or this is just a formality or just happen post factum. So citizens feel that their voice doesn't matter. And today we are just gathering to talk about CSO role in just restoring democratic credibility, especially in the times of crisis, polarization, and some social fatigue, I think. So what emerged from our research is clear, that citizens' trust grows when they feel co-responsible for democracy. So now I would like to just present our delighted guests. So first one, Dr. Meta Novak, University of Ljubljana, Slovenia, researcher and lecturer on political communication and democratic participation. Dr. Claudia Palt, Institute for Comparative Survey Research, Austria, our TRUEDEM partner focusing on cross-national measures of institutional trust. Dr. Cezary Wosiński, Foundation for Dialogue in Civic Development and SOWARD Educational Group, Poland. He's a practitioner working on civic education and participatory innovation. Also, we are delighted that with us is Dr. Hanna Kelm from the Polish Teachers Union at the University of Economics in Katowice, Poland. She is an expert in grassroots initiatives and civic empowerment through education. And last but not least, Professor Boglárka Keller, National University of Public Service, Hungary, political scientist specializing in European integration and the role of civil society in democratic resilience. Thank you for joining our discussion. I've got the first question for you, because I would like to get to know the role of the CSO in building trust. So in your view, what role do CSO play in building trust in democratic institutions at both national and local level? So do you think that their influence is growing or shrinking in the current European context? So maybe I will ask Meta first and her academic perspective.
Thank you very much for the invitation and to give me this chance to speak first. I would say that civil society organizations are an important mediator between the public and the authorities. So they somehow play this role of a transmission belt, we sometimes call it. They transmit the messages from the public, the interests of the public, also the needs of the public to the politicians. And here it's not only in the interest of the public to be heard, but it should be also the interest of politicians so that they hear all these needs and interests. Because only in this way the authorities can and institutions can get information what kind of policy problems exist, what are the needs of the society, what are maybe feasible solutions to this, and they can also understand for what kind of measure there is some sort of political support. So by including the public, and this might be directly or through civil society organizations, the policies that they make have more legitimacy in the eyes of the citizens. And this is very important, mostly in the cases when the measures might not be favorable or pleasant. So for the citizens to understand why something is necessary, although it's not maybe directly in their personal individual interest, it's best that they feel included and that they know their the wishes were listened to, and they understand that this was maybe a compromise. So do you want me to continue, or maybe...
I would like to ask you, what about Slovenia?
Okay, yeah, we notice maybe similar views that you pointed out in the beginning. Also, in our case, representatives of civil society organizations warned about decreasing trust in political institutions. It's very particular in Slovenia that especially trust in political parties is very low, which probably is reflected then also at the success of the elections when newer and newer parties win, because those have not yet disappointed us. But those carry a lot of responsibility, because voters then believe this will bring change, and it's a lot of pressure on them. And also in our case, civil society organizations warn that yes, they're being reached out by the institutions to participate in the policies, but then their feedback is not included in, or it's basically they're reached out too late in the process, or even something that the same organizations are contacted for different policy and they're overburdened, so they don't have the capacity to inequality respond to the demands of the institutions.
So we've got exactly the same evidence from Poland.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask Claudia about some cross-country evidence.
Okay, I can add something to what Meta said. Mediators, CSOs, and in Austria, the process is quite institutionalized. So the social partnership has a long tradition. They are part, and they're also CSOs. So the Austrian corporatism integrates CSOs at an early stage and involves them in policy making. So this may be an advantage and maybe a bit different to other countries, but I don't want to predict it yet. And they are very structured, institutionalized, and translate policy into experience. What you said, kind of mediators, and they act like a link between the citizens and organizations. And what in Austria is really important, it's credibility and transparency, but I think that's also mentioned everywhere. What was very interesting, and I'm asking in here, I got some examples that CSOs gain credibility when they ask for audits, like external audits, to provide the donation seal of approval or something. They gain for more trust, so to say, and they are feedback loops in policy making. So it's Austrian is like corporatism and integrates it. It's very important, and this is something maybe a bit different.
So let's move to the practical area. So I will ask Cesare maybe first, because from our interviews we had feedback that, for example, the CSO leaders are loved by the opposition, but when they are becoming the ruling party, it is completely different story.
And what do you want to
about the role of CSO in building trust.
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought you wanted a political comment, which I'll definitely
You can add it as well.
refrain from at this stage. Well, yeah, I think CEO's leaders have a very important role to play, because we bring democracy to the very low level. I mean, we show people that actually they can depend on us, and they can get really involved, and the co-creation is the crucial thing in this moment. So the fact that my organization, our organizations are so close to people means that they can regain trust, and we can rebuild trust in this way. So that's my comment on that. Mm-hmm.
And Hannah?
I would say that civil organizations, civil society organizations are super important, because they are quite often born out of despair, out of unmet needs. And they maybe to some extent a sign maybe of not lack of trust, but lack of being heard and understood. And they form kind of transmission belt between the society, the individuals, and the government or the local government. Because I think, especially, I don't know as to other countries, but I think that in Poland we have very limited ability to individually contact politicians. So it was also said on this conference that we are not using social media to contact politicians. Also, politicians do not use social media to answer individuals. So we don't have this contact. And if the despair is large enough, we create those organizations to have our voice, to have the power to push through to the politicians and try to, be heard and try to get our needs met. And depending on how the government or the local government is going to react, we are either going to build the trust or not necessary, I would say.
So let's move to the next point. You mentioned just bottom-up projects. So I would like to ask if civic initiatives like bottom-up project counteract the decline of trust in public institutions. And have you got any examples from your experience, of course, where the community-level actions have effectively rebuilt confidence in democracy? Maybe Cesare first.
Well, definitely, because first of all, we bring democracy at the eye level, I would say. So down to the ground, because people actually don't lose trust because of ideology, I believe, but they lose trust because of the lack of interaction, or lack of interest. So from this perspective, yes, we can show that democracy is not theory, but something that really works operationally. From my perspective, so what we do, and we also bring democracy from the local to national level, because if they trust us, then they trust the institution that we cooperate with. If you ask me for a real example, there's a project we do for democracy project, actually, for the Ministry of Education of Poland. That's the online project. We do it as a foundation, and we bring this ready-made exercises on democracy, ecology, and future skills, down to the level of primary or secondary school students. And because we do it at a very professional and understandable manner, then the institution that actually funds us, that is the Ministry of Education, is becoming more trustworthy. That's the real case, how we bring sort of democracy to the eye level.
Okay. Maybe Hannah, the examples from the Teachers Union. Have you got any?
Yeah, first of all, there are 2 little examples. Yeah, we need more of them, and it would be lovely if we had more of the examples. And well, they are like obvious examples, like participatory budgeting on the local level, when we actually allow citizens to decide where are we going to spend money usually for infrastructure. We also have in Katowice a green budget now, so we can have. Apart from the local budget, we also can have some ecological investments made by public. We also have like senior councils or youth councils. So these are like, I would say, obvious examples, but they are not enough, and they are not always efficient. So we may have a senior council that is unheard by the local government, or the same with youth government. So the good examples where it actually works, they are only few. And it's not enough to have an organization. It's important that mainly I would say the local authorities, they actually recognize them and listen to them and cooperate and intend a co-creation, co-production, or inclusive decision-making. If they do not intend it, they don't make an effort to cooperate with the organization, it's just not going to work. And as to the trust, well, we all know that it's very hard to be trusted and to gain the trust of others, also the organizations, but it's very easy to lose it, and almost impossible to regain it once you lose it. So if people are constantly disappointed, they are not going to trust again. If they are being promised something and they don't get it, they are not going to trust again. So I think it's important to be consistent. So the local government needs to be consistent. If I promise something, I really do it. I walk the talk, as we say it. And if I don't, because some conditions are changing, I take responsibility. I say I'm sorry, and trying to fix it, and not searching for culprits, not searching for excuses. And I think that's important, and also transparency. So I know what is happening and why is it happening. And as to the civil society organizations, I think it's crucial to incorporate them in the decision-making process, because if we see why we are doing something, why the government is doing something, or the local government has to make certain decision, because of course we have, for example, limited budgeting, we understand even if we don't agree, yes, and the government is not losing trust. So including the organization in the decision-making process and being transparent in this decision-making process, I think is crucial to make it work. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think that exactly. What about Slovenia? Have you got any examples of how it is in Slovenia?
Well, interesting. Also in Slovenia, I think participatory budgeting appeared a lot as a good practices. And I find it here particularly interesting because there's more and more municipalities that are basically introducing this system. But probably it's thanks to civil society organization that this system is growing, because there are a couple of civil society organizations that regionally support municipalities in the introductions of these tools. So they guide them how to organize them, what's the principles of these tools. And I think that in municipalities where these have taken place now for a couple of rounds, let's call it like this, have become quite well received, because at first it is a challenge, right? Also to inform the public what this means and what actually they are being requested to do. So it's important that in this case the local authorities are not scared if on the first round there will be not so much participation. I think it's important to persist with these tools. But what we noticed also in conversation with civil society representatives, which are, of course, at the same time also citizens, that they feel that too little budget is located to participatory budgeting. So the projects that are being decided upon and being funded are their small-scale project about the bench in the park or, like minor project. And I think it's a good practice. I think it's a good way to introduce this system. I think it's a good way in terms of that citizens realize that if they voted on something, this is implemented, it has an effect. But with time, we should permit them to basically make more major decisions. Are we investing in highways or trains? Also, this kind of decisions. And I think that here, something you mentioned, it's very important, this mutual trust. It's not just citizens that have to trust this instrument. It's even more important that authorities at the local or national level trust this system, because I feel that at some point they are afraid what the citizens will decide upon. So this is why we allow them to distribute just a small share of the budget, so nothing can go wrong.
So this trust just acts
in both ways.
Both ways.
In both ways, yes.
What about Austria?
I don't want to start with a negative example, so I'm going for a good one. What a lot of CSOs said that is, when you live in a democracy and you want to participate, it needs money, and democracy needs space. It needs room where people can act and can live democracy. And they are really frustrated when decisions happen behind closed doors, and they are not, it deepens frustration and distrust. And we have one of our 9 regions in Austria. What really helped was that the Citizens and Youth Climate Council is in one of the regional constitutions. So it's more institutionalized, and this model can restore confidence. On the other hand, we had a National Climate Council, and it took place. It was a long process, but actually the outcome, I don't know what happened. So many people who took place, it was this initiative, it was communicated in all the media, but actually there's no binding thing on it. So there's no outcome relevant. And with the topic of climate, it's hard anyway, but yeah, this is, what interesting is that Austrian trust can be described as procedural. So it's different, I think, to Poland. Yeah. And we gain trust, or CSO gain trust through routine participation process. So it's a bit different. And yeah, I think there would be chances, but it's really, they have a translating function, but it's hard if it's not in a constitution and you just act and say, you can, like, if we go by train or by car, but the Climate Council, actually, people are disappointed.
So I think that a very interesting case can be the Hungarian one. So Boglarka says a few words about it.
I don't want to deliver a lecture now, but I think you have to. I have to say something because it's absolutely unique. And first of all, our Prime Minister knows a lot about the role of civil society organizations because he wrote his master's thesis about that. So he knows why they are very important. And the Hungarian situation is very complicated because one political scientist said that we have the hardware, but we don't have the software. So we have a lot of civil society organizations, but we lack the grassroots mobilization and capacity building. So this is how it looks like. And I think what we can talk about civil society organizations as having 3 functions. So we can talk about a service provider, we can talk about community building, and a 3rd category is more the watchdog role and advocacy. And the first 2 is relatively okay for the current government, because if it's about environmental issues, or if it's about family issues or sick children, then it's okay. But when we talk about this 3rd one, the advocacy and watchdog function, Then we see the absolute alien kind of attitude to these organizations. And how it happened, if we look at the system in a way that we really think and underline, and I agree with you, the important role of civil society organizations in the governance structure when we have different stakeholders. We don't talk about the governance structure anymore. We talk about the hard government. So from governance back to government. That's very important. And there is no role of advocacy civil society organizations anymore. So that's one thing. Why? And that it is such an important thing, it turned out immediately after this super election in 2010, when this government was elected, and for 15 years they are in government now. And the first thing they did after being elected is a new law for civil society organizations. So we can say that they re-regulated them. A new law when they are more monitored, there is a database, what they are doing, and step by step they got into the front, and we are at the stage when if a civil society organization gets funds from outside, from Norway or from other countries, then it is troubled. So even the police can get there, even the tax authority can go there. So the situation is a little bit different if we talk about this advocacy watchdog role. And another thing what happened in legislation is that that many initiation of legislation in the parliament is not coming from ministers, because then you need to consult other stakeholders, but they are initiated by individual MEPs. So then you can cut the role of the civil society organizations because you don't need consultation. If there is a big issue in green or environmental, I don't know, in any other issues. So the situation is the following, and consultation. Yes, there is consultation is just shrinking in legislation. There is a new kind of consultation tool which is called national consultation. So it seems we can be happy because we have national consultation. But these are not going through organizations, but they are individual letters sent to the voters, but these are biased questions. So what is the government doing? The government is selecting among the civil society organizations. Politicization is very important. So those that reflect the government position, they can get funding through the national, National Cooperation Fund. So these, for example, I can mention one, which I don't know if you have heard, but there are peace marches, which are a kind of, there is an organization which calls itself as a civil society organization and organizing big demonstrations on the street. But this is funded by this National Cooperation Fund and supported by the government, because what they are representing, they are in line with the government position. But if another advocacy comes up, and it's proven that they are getting funds from outside, then the civil society organization is stigmatized, that they are foreign-funded agents. So you can imagine, so trust in this kind of environment is different. So everything is accepted, which is service provider and these kind of things. But if it's about criticizing something or coming up with a counter policy agenda, then it is not supported anymore. So this is the situation. And civil society organization try to find their future in under these circumstances. And advocacy and watchdog functions still exist, but they are really fighting for the future under these circumstances, and a new authority, Hungarian sovereignty authorities also exist, which actually watches if funds are coming from foreign entities, like any entities, like even the EU institutions or other countries or embassies or something. So it's not easy to survive under these circumstances.
Thank you for sharing your opinion. I think that we can all agree that trust can begins with the small-scale visibility, but it's a double-edged sword. So sometimes the institutions don't trust the bottom-up initiative, so it's sometimes very hard for CSO to act on building trust. But what about the crises? We are living in the times of polycrises. So we had the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and also the rising polarization. And do you think that this all crises changed the way CSO relate to citizens and institutions? And did the crises also can accelerate innovation in civic engagement? We've got some examples from Poland, so maybe I will ask Hanna first.
Well, is it on? Yeah. I think that in Poland we strive under pressure. So if there is a crisis, we tend to organize ourselves very well. And I think we have shown it also in COVID, but I think mainly during the war in Ukraine, when Russia attacked Ukraine. Even though we tend to complain, we could see that the civil society organized itself quite well at the very beginning with help at the micro level, giving time to the government to organize the macro level, I would say, of support. So I think it worked quite well. Not necessarily there was a great cooperation, but it worked well. And I think it's shown us that we are capable of cooperating, we are capable of doing this, and we have learned a lot. And also I think that times of crisis, they help us find solutions that are useful, also technological solutions like the various apps and technological maybe not equipment, but software to connect, to communicate, because it's necessary. So if it's necessary, we are much faster to find the way. So yes, I think it strengthens the cooperation. Yes, but it kind of finishes after the crisis. When the initial enthusiasm is over, it just comes to the starting point, yes, I guess.
So the citizens are tired of
yes.
being involved all the time. Cesare, do you agree with Hania?
Of course, yeah, certainly. I would just add one more thing. I mean, agility maybe, that we as civic organizations had to become more agile, more present, because people valued those not who are so well structured or well organized, but who are present right at the spot. Obviously, technology, as Hannah said, and online means stuff like that. But being present and reaction on the spot in an agile way was something that was really, really valued and still is, yeah. And that's how we have to reshape our organization as well.
Maybe I can add one thing, because if it comes to war in Ukraine, I think that both citizens and CSO just wear the government shoes to help the Ukrainian refugees and to just arrange everything connected with the income on refugees to Poland.
Just because we were there, you know, because we're relatively small organizations, and we can be present right away, right on the spot, right there where the need is. Mm-hmm.
So this is agile, yeah. This is agility. Maybe I will ask Meta how it's work in Slovenia.
Well, I would say it's the same, right? That in crisis, it's the civil society organizations, the one that can respond quicker. They are more flexible. I think the reason is because particularly if the grassroots organizations coming from the citizens, including them, they basically identify the needs of citizens first and before the authorities, and this is why they can respond. So particularly during the COVID crisis, they could respond with services that were needed, like help for the elderly and sort of groups that were in need, but also as a response towards the governmental measure when they seem too harsh and unreasonable. I think the problem here is that that it basically shows that maybe the institutions were not ready to listen to the citizens, and because they weren't listened to, then they turned to civil society organizations that they could, provide some sort of feedback. Yeah. Here I'm referring mostly to the protests during the COVID pandemic regarding the measures that seems on times as maybe too harsh, too difficult to implement in your daily lives. And during the economics and financial crisis, which happened already in 2008, it was again the civil society organizations that first recognized the needs in sort of helping the people that had more economic needs in terms of face more inequalities. And when this is sort of a current response, because the civil society organizations are faster, it's okay. I think it becomes a problem when the institutions rely that the civil society organizations will solve that permanently, because they don't have capacity and funds to do this like on the long run.
We in Poland are also very good in crises and all the grassroots movements connected with this. How about Hungary? You mentioned before about the grassroots movement, so I'm asking you how it is when it comes to crisis.
What for me as a political scientist is very interesting is that how much the regime learns from the organization of civil societies, because it exists a kind of civic circles which is was supported since 2010 by the government, and it was very successful because they actually, all the knowledge how the civil societies are formed was built into the strategic of the government. And now we see the emergence of the opposition leader, and he's doing exactly the same. So he tries to form little islands and try to actually foster this kind of mobilization. Back to the crisis question, there is, which is I think very positive, when there was a quite huge amount of Ukrainian refugees, because we are we have a border with Ukraine, and many Hungarians are living in Ukraine. I think they were very, they really show a very nice kind of answer, because there at the local communities and civil society organizations that were located at the border, they did everything to help. And but that was also supported by the government, emphasizing that we will help the refugees and the humanitarian things. We will do everything, but we will not provide weapons and military equipment. So it was actually in line what the government was also communicated. Crises, I think, are double-edged sword, we can say, because on one hand, yes, they can help to provide, they can contribute to faster responses, because you are in a situation you have to answer. But on the other hand, it doesn't help in the funding pillar, because you have less funds to provide to those organizations, and then the struggle for funding is even higher, actually. So we saw both examples for both of this. The lack of funding, then you can be very enthusiastic, but you cannot do too much. But it pushes you to give answers faster.
Yeah, so you mentioned about the budget pillar, of course. But we have a lot of very important tools which can act in this way. it's not only something what needs money, but we've also got, for example, some citizens panel, participatory actions on, for example, youth councils. So I would like to ask you, which participatory practices best support institutional transparency and credibility? Which can be used just to build or restore trust? And is it just a symbolic gestures of the ruling parties or just local governments, or this is just a really effective tools? Maybe Claudia first.
I don't want to destroy your scenario. Is it on? Yes. And I don't want to be the bad cop, but good things were said already. But I have to add something when it comes to pandemic and how CSO build relationship. And there was report that there was erosion of informal dialogue, of course, because people couldn't meet. And there were rather quick executive decisions than consultations. So it got harder. As you mentioned, some CSOs could use this, could benefit from them, because they strengthened civic resilience. They were able to. The other thing I want to mention is that crisis exposed inequalities and forced a shift to digital, let me say, participation and solidarity. So some parts of the population could not participate because they are not in the virtual world. So this makes it even more harder for us CSOs to rebuild trust, but also to reach out for the people to contact CSOs. So there's a group, not rural and like in cities, but it's also people which are not online. And so this happened, and pandemic was more and more what got virtual. I mean, before hybrid conferences were not usual, but now it's everyday routine. So I would say it has definitely changed, and it got harder, but some could benefit from it. So I had to add this because for me it was important.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure just to hear your voice. So maybe you will add something about these tools, which are effective or which can just help to build credibility and transparency of government actions.
So we have these tools on local, regional, and county level, on a national level. So only a few are like in the Viennese constitution included. So local, it's much more easy to participate. You have a better overview. When it comes to regions, it gets more difficult. When it comes to European Union level, it's really hard. But if you want to build up, you need, I don't know, 2 million people signing it. So it's, and it has never done. No one had ever done a grassroots initiative to go on a European level. It's almost impossible. But for me, initiative, what I would mention here, and I think it's specific for Austria, we start very early with political education, and we have youth council, youth governments, where young people can live democracy and also act. So this is what I want to mention as a special initiative. And what I heard from the European House in Vienna, there's a parliament, and they have a new place established outside that there are not so much security checks are, where exhibitions are like your fabulous space here, where people can meet and can discuss. And this is kind of teaching young people how to live democracy and maybe get opponent groups to another. So this is something I would like to mention, which is quite outstanding, I would say.
Maybe I will ask Cesare now, because he was the part of our workshop, and the result of the workshop was that the education, democratic education, should start from very beginning. So it should be start with the primary schools, pupils, just to get familiar with the democratic values.
Definitely. Definitely, the younger the better. I think in Poland it's getting better and better. I mentioned this project of ours, but I know the young citizen it's called, but we just one among many. The ministry and the local governments are now sort of putting a lot of interest and a lot of input into and money as well into teaching young students democracy, generally speaking. Okay, so it's better, but it's still not enough, I believe, and it should be much more. Otherwise, because it's a common truth, we have to fight for democracy, and the sooner we start it, the more result we will achieve. Is that the only comment? Is there something else?
I was asking about the effective tools.
Yeah,
so,
the effective
you can
tools.
Of course, ask.
So what I'm really a huge fan of is the co-creation, I would call. Okay, so it's more. Rather than consultation, I would say co-creation is the key to make people participate and understand how democracy can actually work and how positive results can actually bring about. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Make it your project, or this is. Yeah, people should make things their project.
Exactly. They should feel, when they feel involved from the very start, they then feel that it is theirs, and they can even fight for it, and that's the real involvement.
I'm a university professor, but I'm also an activist, because that's my third Jean Monnet project, and what I think it's very important. I agree with you, education. But I think we have a lot to do, especially in this Central European region, and a lot to change in this regard, because students and pupils in the high school, they are not very open anymore to this passive education. They would like to be involved. And there are a lot of methodological side of this democratic education, like gamification, so coming up with games and using the new technology, the digital technology, to simulate things. And one of the most important things, especially in regimes where democracy is backsliding, is the critical thinking part of it. So everything what is given to them, all of the information, the first thing when we teach something is that telling them that the best, if you are not believing me, don't believe me. This is a kind of message, because then this fosters a kind of approach that can lead them to come up with new policy proposals at the end. And what I am doing as a true pro-European person, I selected regions in Hungary which are not so developed. So this is eastern part of Hungary. And I go there with my students who are originally from that region or from that little village. And I go there as a professor with a little bus with my students. And I want to show them that it's possible to go to the university, because you see, this is the student, and this student is here, and I'm going to tell you something about European Union, that it's not a bad thing. So just think about it, and I have wonderful results in this. So if you take the effort, and we exactly targeting the underdeveloped regions. So we are not targeting the big, like Budapest and Metropolis or Debrecen or something like that. And these kind of things can help. So not like directly in the project target those regions which don't get the knowledge, which don't have the chance, and the families are absolutely like hating Brussels. And if you go there and you try to explain them that it's a good thing and it's your career, it can be, it's not a miracle, then they can take that step. So we are doing this in the project what I am leading.
So excellent. We heard about education, co-creation, and that they are the real trust multipliers. So I think that our principal can be just happy with the results because they are just in line with our findings. So maybe we'll move to the audience questions. Have you got any comments or questions? Yes, please. Yeah, I'm going.
Thank you, Radek Markowski. Well, actually, it's to thank you very much. It was very interesting debate. Yet, to the initial part of your panel and to the whole conference, something that is troubling me is this absolute attitude to trust as something positive. Well, you know, both my empirical studies and my life experience tells me that it is advisable to distinguish between rational trust and irrational trust, just as there is irrational distrust and rational distrust. I'm in a country where you should be really very cautious about trusting certain personalities in public life. So I would like you, I have zillions of examples, of course, but other than that, I would encourage you to maybe elaborate a little bit on this. If you see it as a problem, or am I alone?
I would like to add one comment before Boglarka, because it's not an accident that Boglarka is in this panel, because Hungarian case is just for this comment. So maybe, yes.
Yes. I'm sorry. Maybe I. It's okay. Can you? Okay. So Hungarian case. No, it's working. Yes. So I think distrust is good in democracies. I have to underline this. Why? Because then, so imperfections exist, and if you can detect and if you can see these things and you can distrust, you don't have to accept that the institution, public service, public procurement is operating well, because it is part of democracy that you are always questioning the operational model of the surrounding institutional structure. So I absolutely agree with you. And you don't, so we have to have a kind of more complex and differentiated view to learn how the system works and how to still keep your critical mind. And I think that belongs to the kind of attitude of the Hungarian citizens as well, that they try to develop this kind of thing. And to be honest, I was born under communism, and I feel a lot of similarities, which is sad on one way, to the free speech, to the how we formulate our thoughts, because this is how, on one way, we develop a kind of very sophisticated view, what is communicated, and if it's right, it's not. So distrust belongs to this kind of democratic thinking. From time to time, because we are living in an imperfect world. So this belongs to us. So trust is not something we always have to look for. We also distrust the institutions, because this is how you ask, is it right? Am I handled well in this situation? Or something is wrong? And this is how we develop this kind of democratic thinking.
So it's all about the dialogue between citizens, institutions, and the moderators. So CSO, I like translating these values for the society, but also just bringing the ideas to institutions. And I think that this will be the best thing at the end of this panel. Have you got any questions? I like very much this comment about distrust, because it's extremely important nowadays, because we are just evaluating the actions of institutions in all countries, and trust, it's not something rational. Sometimes it's emotions, but in many times we've got just some very bad feedback from the institutions. So thank you very much for just joining our panel, Meta, Claudia, Cesare, Hanna, and Boglarka, for sharing your huge expertise and for your daily work in strengthening democracy in practice. Thank you.